A quick note, this episode covers a disappearance and the emotional impact of uncertainty, including discussions about the possibility of death. Some listeners may find it difficult. Please take care while listening.
You would just never expected this from Keith. And I just feel a sense of compassion for this family and everybody in Dickinson that knew him.
So the last we have an account of Keith is May 20th, 2024, Monday. He's seen on a neighborhood camera in the morning, 6:03 a.m. Mountain Time.
There's just no answers, and we just want an answer. We're just trying to do what we can do as a community, even just to help out.
Keith just rode off into the sunset.
You're listening to Dakota Spotlight. My name is James Woolner. Last year, on the morning of May 20th, 2024, in Dickinson, North Dakota, a 53-year-old man named Keith Schmidt disappeared from his home. What happened to him is a mystery, and many details are fuzzy. His vehicles and cell phone were found at his house, but his wallet was gone. It's unknown for certain if he walked away or if someone picked him up. In fact, foul play can't be ruled out in this case either. In this episode, we're going to meet people who are doing their best to unravel this mystery and find answers for themselves and for Keith Schmidt's family and loved ones. Keith is described as 5 foot 9 inches tall, weighing 140 pounds, with long brown hair and green eyes. Up until his disappearance, Keith operated his own flooring business, installing carpets and flooring around Dickinson. In his free time, he sometimes frequented a bar named the Esquire. In fact, it was his friends there that sounded the alarm when Keith suddenly stopped showing up. Before we meet the people still searching for Keith, a word about how we talk about him. Keith has been missing for more than a year, and with every silent month, hearts get pulled in different directions, still hoping, yet bracing for bad news. In that tension, even those close to him sometimes slip into the past tense. To say Keith was soft-spoken instead of Keith is soft-spoken is not surrender, it is simply the way language bends under uncertainty. When you hear those past tense moments, please listen for the love and worry beneath them. Everyone you're about to meet would rejoice to learn that Keith is alive and well. Until they know for sure, they hold on to hope while searching for answers. And sometimes our grammar shows just how hard that can be. To begin with, we will meet Eric Grabowski. Eric has written some freelance news articles about the case for the Dickinson Press, and he continues to seek answers.
Yes, Eric Grabowski, originally from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. My main trade, so to speak, is in academia. I'm a communication person with graduate degrees there from Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, PA. And I have taught, most recently at Dickinson State University, 2010 to 2024. And, over the years, I've developed an interest in cold cases and done some of that work on the side, so to speak. And so I was traveling last summer, and I was kind of keeping an eye on this situation from a distance. And when I got back to Dickinson, I started to have conversation with James Miller, Dickinson Press editor of the Dickinson Press, and pitched it to him, and he said, run with it. And I did. And, the first article, which is still, unfortunately current in as much as we don't know a lot more, we know some nuances. But what happened to Keith Schmidt, September 2024, open access, the Dickinson Press. And so that's how I got into it. That's my interest in it. And it's something that I'm staying with and have stayed with some follow-up articles, and appreciate, the exposure on this case. As I always say, someone out there knows something or knows someone who knows something.
So who is Keith Schmidt?
A well-liked man. I hear when you just talk to so many people in town, I hear the same three things, more or less. One is great guy, who's the kind of guy that people like to talk to. Now, he's not the most talkative guy. He's a low-key guy. So that's definitely something you also hear, right? He's someone that he's not necessarily going to go out of his way to initiate certain conversations, but he can hold a conversation, but he's just more of a low-key guy. But that said, he's also not someone who is just going to open up about his problems and go out of his way to burden other people, even people who are close to him.
I would say he was quiet.
This is Laura Scherer, Keith's sister.
He didn't volunteer any information about what he was doing or whatever. You had to pull it out of him, like an introvert. And very kind. I think he would help anybody that needed help. I feel he's that kind of a person.
And also, he's not someone who would go out of his way to make enemies. And so, again, he's someone who well-liked, also respected in his work in the flooring business, and someone who's smart and competent and handy. He's mechanically inclined. And so all positive about Keith William Schmidt.
He was adopted when he was 6 weeks old, and I was 14. So we have a 14-year age gap. I graduated in 1975, and he was born in 71. So when he was 4, I was out of the house and going to college and got a job. When he was 12, our mom passed away. She was only 46 years old, and I was not at home. I had one kid and one on the way. And so he was left to be with my dad. So, my dad wasn't, used to being the caregiver, I would say. He wasn't the cook, because my mom always cooked, cleaned. My mom took care of the house, and my dad worked at MDU and farmed on the side. So sometimes I think as a 12-year-old, that's quite a tragedy. And to grow up after you were really, really close with your mom, and all of a sudden you're left with your dad and your mom's not there.
Anybody that knew Keith, you trusted him. He was just a nice individual. He spoke to you with thoughtful words,
This is Greg Tyler of Dickinson. Greg met Keith years ago on a construction site when Greg was doing the custom tile work and Keith was laying carpet. Their mutual respect for one another's crafts turned into a multi-year friendship outside of work, where they enjoyed conversations together, sometimes while enjoying a drink or two.
It was us, just spending a little time together, having a couple of drinks, just lightening up. And no, he never got real talkative. No, he never got where he'd start spilling the beans and talking about somebody. He was just himself. He was quiet and kept to himself. And he smoked a lot of cigarettes. Really was good with keeping things organized and tidy, and he had all his bolts in the right areas. And he was a put together person. He wasn't miscombobulated all over the place. His sense of humor sometimes is a smirk and an eyebrow raise, kind of letting you know, you're thinking what I'm thinking, but not so much one to ever make fun of anybody or make light. Or he didn't want to be the one that made people laugh. He was kind of in the background. I do remember him telling me something one time. He said, "Nobody cares who you are. They just care about what work you do." He said, "Nobody cares about who we are. They just care about what kind of work we do." And I actually still believe that. This world, we're all so disposable in our trade and our craft. You have to accept that it's about what we produce and not who we are. And I think he understood that as much as anybody, where he just never got pompous or never got built up on himself, even when he did have excellent qualities, to boast upon. He would just they don't care about us. They just care about our work. And that's something I still hold to. And it actually helps you in the long run, because you don't take anything personal. He came and installed the carpet in my upstairs 2 bedrooms and living room, and then said he didn't want to get paid for it. I says, why? He goes, well, maybe down the road when I have tile questions or something like that, I'll just give you a buzz. And so you're, yep, absolutely, I'm here for you. And then you almost feel like indebted to him every time you see him. You're like, hey, bud, I'm still waiting for that call. Let me know if you got anything going on. Oh, no, yeah, I got everything's good. He was just that kind of guy. I think just his kind words and his small actions, I think have done more to help people than anything that, we could say, oh, Keith said this or did this. It's actually just his life.
Keith Schmidt was last seen on May 20th, 2024, a Monday.
He's seen on a neighborhood camera in the morning, 6:03 a.m. Mountain Time.
Through the investigation into the disappearance, it's been established that something seemed to have changed or shifted in Keith's normal routine during the 10 days leading up to his disappearance.
In those 10 days, Keith was starting to go off script in some ways, not completely, but in some ways. He was not being as attentive to his work routine. He was not as communicative with folks.
As Keith often did, on the weekend before he disappeared, Keith traveled to Watford City to his father's.
He helped them on the farm. He would mow their lawn. He would fix things that were broke. He would move stuff, whatever they needed done.
But on that weekend, through that weekend, before Monday, May 20th, right, he had said to his father that he would not be returning during the following weekend, and so forth. So there's no doubt that there's something about those 10 days that, in hindsight, are indicative, whatever happened, that something was going on. There was that significant shift, for sure, from the 10th May forward.
We'll be right back.
Beyond May 10th, Cody was attempting to reach Keith multiple times, communicate with him.
I had met with him on Wednesday, I think it was.
This is Cody Maduna. She operates Allen's Decorating Center in Dickinson, and so she often enlists Keith to do flooring work for her clients. Today, she remains a strong advocate for finding Keith.
Because he had been doing some flooring in a house, and I was over at the house, and he was sitting on the steps working on some planking that he had been putting in, and he had miscut a piece, so he was a little upset with himself because he had miscut a piece of trim. And I had said to him, I said, well, I'll bring it over to you. I've got a piece of Sternos. I'll bring it to you. Nope, I'll just come by and grab it. And that was, I think, that Wednesday. And yeah, that was it. And then that weekend, he was supposed to finish the carpet job in that house that he was on. And we had been trying to get a hold of him to see if he was going to finish it. And there was nothing.
But then on that morning, May 20th, about 5:56 a.m., she got that text from Keith. Sorry, been busy.
That was shortly, just a few minutes before 6, when he had texted me that Monday morning and had just told me that, because I've been trying to get a hold of him, and he just told me that morning that he'd been busy, which was an alert right there, because Keith just was not a morning person. He didn't come to start the job till 9:30. So for him to get to me that early in the morning, because I had said to my husband, this is really strange. This is a little early.
Speaking to many folks that know Keith, professionally or personally, this is something that is definitely worthy of note. So the fact that he, texted back to Cody 5:56 a.m., sorry, been busy, and that he was then, 6:03 a.m. Mountain Time, seen on a neighborhood camera outside the house. That is off his routine. He had his morning routine at his pace. Yeah, by mid-morning, he's out there doing his work, but he's certainly not getting going in that way, getting ready to leave from, again, talking to many people who know Keith well, professionally and personally at that time. So that is definitely something that's worthy of paying attention. And then approximately 7 minutes later is when he was seen outside of his residence.
There was only one Ring camera on that block. And it's, it's a video across the street, but you could tell. You just saw him walking out his house, down his driveway, and he faced north.
We did get to see the video, and it's very grainy. It's from a guy, a few doors down across the street. And, I personally, I couldn't tell if it was him or not, but it was at his house, It's not like the videos I see like on, TV.
And if I'm understanding correctly, he is seen standing. Is he seen walking away? And he did not take his vehicles, correct?
He did not take a vehicle. We have a neighborhood camera. Keith's outside his house. Now, this is not a moving camera, as we know with these. So we're dealing with an image. It is a grainy image from what I understand, but adequately ascertainable to say that is Keith in the police's judgment. And so he was out of the house and then facing north, and that's it. That's all we have. We really don't know then from there what happened.
And this is the other thing that we've been talking about. In front of Keith's house, he would have had a pickup with a pull-type trailer that he had. So if somebody would have come to pick him up, they would have never picked that up on camera, because he could have been on the other side of that trailer, his work trailer, and you would have never known. And I don't know if when the police watched the video at that time, they've never said if there was a vehicle that had driven by simultaneously at that time.
We know he left his cell phone at home.
We searched Keith's house, He wasn't there, of course, and we hadn't been there. We've only been to his house a handful of times. When we went to the garage, he has a lot of stuff in there. His phone was still laying there charging on the phone or on his workbench. And so it's like, okay.
We can say highly likely he took his wallet and it's not been accounted for. There's a few other personal items that I'm not going to mention here, but that haven't necessarily been accounted for that he might or possibly took. But we can say the phone was left at home and he most likely took his wallet.
I mean, his house is as neat as a pin, minimalist. Apparently, we were told he ate at Subway a lot. So there was no food in the house. There was dishes, not many pots and pans. No, just not much.
I saw in your article that there's a note of him leaving his tools at a work site. Do you consider those tools left at the work site as of interest, or could it just be that he hadn't finished the job yet?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think in the context of the things surrounding it, if it would have been just isolated, like you said, sometimes for efficiency reasons, folks doing contract sort of work may have things in various places, so for some sort of continuity. But in this case, in this context, right, and the fact is that he's not seeing work through, he's not on a regular communication pattern, especially with someone like Cody, with or for whom he's doing a lot of work for over a period of time. And especially for someone like Keith, who is handy and tools mean something. And again, back to that typical North Dakota guy. Okay, you put all that in context, now we have a red flag.
So there's one thing I want to touch on also that I saw in your article. And if not all listeners own homes where you have a garbage day, but a garbage day often is usually once a week or twice a week, where you're taking your garbage can out to the street and that truck is coming on a certain day. And so what you usually do, or at least what I usually did, was you take the garbage out on the morning of garbage day because then you get all your garbage taken away and you're starting a new week. Well, he put out his trash Sunday night, but his garbage day was Tuesday. And I remember, when I would witness my neighbors doing something like that, it says something. Often, sometimes you'd see them putting out, let's say garbage day is Tuesday, but you see your neighbor putting their garbage cans out on, Friday night or Saturday morning or something. Well, it's telling you that they're probably not going to be around to do it on Tuesday, right? So I find that very interesting.
Right. So this timeline gets so significant. So it was Monday, May 20th, 2024. And again, according to Laura Scherer, Keith's sister, and she was on the record in my article, and so she got this from, my understanding is her communication with the police. The trash pickup for that neighborhood was Tuesday morning. But Keith put his trash out that Sunday night, the 19th. So yeah, that was a notable thing too, that, why would Keith put that trash out early? And I would say this, we've mentioned the tools and the work schedule, which are notable, but you start to get into Keith being up earlier than his normal routine and out and about, really, regardless of when he gets up. It's not so much about when he's up and waking up, it's getting going and moving forward and being out and about. And now this trash issue, now you're, again, seen in that context, it's worthy of discussion.
So he was last seen on May 20th, 2024, and he was reported as missing on the 29th, I believe. And what happened after that?
Yeah, so by the end of May, Keith was reported missing. Again, credit to some of his friends at the Esquire and folks like Cody, noticing that something was up. They weren't seeing Keith and forcing that safety check, involving getting that attention of the law enforcement. And then through the summer months, and again, I was sort of observing the case from a distance, you were seeing more and more attention on the case, including from the Dickinson PD giving the updates. And, that was coming from their social media and through media outlets. And then, from the time I jumped into the case forward, right, again, from the September article forward, we really had those periods of months where, and again, in there, the family and then also the police in their own social media asking hunters to be on the lookout through the various seasons, right? Because they're out there, feet on the ground. And sadly, and we hear this so often, right? Hunters out there, they do find human remains. I do remember, too, through some Facebook discussion from the county level, that they had done some additional searching that was enabled through whatever resources. So, that would have been through Sheriff Corey Lee's office. And then, the months really went on and, friends and family seeking answers.
The not knowing can drive you crazy. I hope he's alive. I just don't think he is. I have no idea where he could be or any idea. I don't know. I don't know why he would have left. A couple of my kids and I, we feel that, I don't know if it was foul play, if somebody, he went to walk down the street and somebody needed help with their vehicle and he got in there. I have no clue.
Those conversations and that momentum and that ongoing focus, people not wanting to let this case go, so many people saying, let's just keep this conversation going. That really provided that lead up to, okay, let's talk about this search planning meeting. Let's get this going. And that's, again, where folks like Cody Meduna have been instrumental.
You would just never expected this from Keith. And I just feel a sense of compassion for this family and everybody in Dickinson that knew him. There's just no answers, and we just want an answer. we're just trying to do what we can do as a community, even just to help out.
Planning meeting was held in April at the community library in Dickinson. Travis Bateman was there from Badlands Search and Rescue.
The people we met Cody was the first person we had met besides the detective. And I say bless their hearts for wanting to do this. I think it's so kind of the community. The detective has been amazing with us. And I feel the Dickinson Police Department and community has did wonderful.
We've already done we've tried to do 2 searches. Well, as you know, we found nothing, but I guess you feel good, you're out there, you're looking. We've got people that have been helping, family members that have come to town. So we have another one coming up on the 14th of June. We're going to be out looking by East End Auto, Rummel's Auto Wrecking, some of those places that we knew that Keith really liked to be, because he was a rummager. He liked to work on old vehicles, so that was his place. And everybody that knew Keith, even the people in the junkyards, oh yeah, we remember Keith, we know. And there's a lot of ground to look through there. Just places that, under trees, campers, cars, storage bins, all kind of areas just to walk. And I just would love to see more people get out. Hopefully it'll be nice that day and just take a walk with us. Just look. June 14th. And everybody shows up here at Allen's Decorating. It's a business that I own, located on Main, downtown Dickinson. We ask you to be here 9:30, 9:45, because we would like to be out the door by 10. That way we have enough direction where to go. And then with Travis, the Badlands Search and Rescue, and some of their members that come, they kind of pinpoint us, direct us where to go.
And I do say bless their hearts for wanting to do a search. We did help with the first one. We didn't make the second one, and we can't do this one either, so I feel bad, but
North Dakota is a windy place on the planet, and as the community of Dickinson attempts to deal with the mystery of missing Keith Schmidt, their thoughts and hopes and fears are blown in different directions, sometimes simultaneously, like a twister of uncertainty tumbling along the prairie. It's a whirlwind of possible explanations keeping everyone guessing. Maybe Keith left on his own accord. Maybe he was kidnapped. Maybe he was seeking solitude. Maybe he was killed. Maybe there was an accident. The list goes on. Amid the uncertainty, everyone handles the unknown differently, each response a reflection of how they choose to honor Keith. For some, comfort comes through action, the pursuit of answers, getting out there, searching for Keith's remains. For others, like Keith's longtime friend Greg Tyler, comfort takes a quieter form, found in memories, not in the fields.
And I'm so torn on this with where he is. But I still am not mourning him. I know it's a hard thing to say, and I'm getting tearful talking about this. And I don't want to find his remains in his, because then I have to relive it.
When I spoke with Greg, he recalled a conversation he had once had with Keith Schmidt. Keith had shared his philosophy on how to best leave a party. Keith had apparently often observed, in wonder, how others tended to leave social gatherings, often loudly with lots of goodbyes and attention all around.
They say goodbye 8 times. Just, we better get going. Hey, goodbye. Hey, but it was good seeing you. And, tomorrow, but good seeing you. And we got to get out of here. And they stand there.
That kind of fanfare departure is foreign to Keith Schmidt. Keith told his friend that he has a different approach to leaving a party. It goes something like this.
When the evening's ending, you might say to a close friend, it was good to see you, but you might just tell the host, thank you, and you just leave. You don't tell everybody you're leaving. You don't, okay guys, good seeing everybody. No, you just walk out, you leave. Your presence has been made and you leave. Keith just rode off into the sunset without attacks on any of us. And now we're left wondering, and we're left with great memories, and we're left with, and I don't even think we're left. Maybe one day we'll see him again in an afterlife or something.
We'll be right back. In addition to the searches, law enforcement, Eric, Cody, and others continue to investigate the case, looking for new leads and revisiting old ones.
We are revisiting everything, leaving no stone unturned, including revisiting these 10 days and even maybe leading up to those 10 days, talking to folks and rethinking, is there anything we're still missing on other communication where Keith might have dropped away from? Did he say anything to anyone else? I can tell you many times when I'm going through town, talking to folks, or I'm helping distribute flyers for the volunteer search. If I happen, someone says, yeah, Keith, I remember Keith. And I'll say, when do you remember the last time you spoke to him? Do you remember anything different? And it's usually, no, it's just the same guy I was used to seeing. But certainly looking at, in his social spheres and in his business spheres, personal spheres, anything we're missing about those 10 days, any additional nuances. But as of now, nothing new to report. Significant. Again, some of it is speculative and thinking this and doing that, but for the most part, the narrative's the same.
Here is Keith's sister, Laura, again.
But I do feel the community and Cody and that Eric has brought a lot of interest and attention to the case.
I should note that Laura and Keith's father passed away this month on May 23rd, 3 days past the 1-year mark of Keith's disappearance. His funeral was this past Friday.
It was kind of ironic when we drove to Watford City to the funeral. We stopped at the Country Kitchen to eat the day before the funeral, but we went there and we walked into the Country Kitchen, and the first thing we did was see a picture of Keith on a sign for an upcoming search.
If you would like to see photos of Keith, you should check out Eric Grabowski's article titled What Happened to Keith Schmidt. I've put a link in the podcast show notes to this and other articles Eric has written. But you can also simply head over to the website, thedickinsonpress.com, and search What Happened to Keith Schmidt. In fact, when I search Google for What Happened to Keith Schmidt, that article comes right up.
And again, thanks to James Miller for his idea on this too, the editor of the Dickinson Press. In the September article, What Happened to Keith Schmidt, I was able to get some additional photos, and again, thanks to Laura Scherer, Keith's sister. That article has various photos, including one without Keith wearing his typical hat. And we've used that photo in some of the follow-up updates so that those other photos give additional visuals on Keith. So that article would have those photos, additional photos.
If you feel you have relevant information about Keith Schmidt's disappearance, you are encouraged to call the Dickinson Police Department at 701-456-7759. You can also leave an anonymous tip online at the Dickinson Police Tip Line. I've got a link to that in the show notes as well. You can also contact Eric Grabowski as he continues to keep his ear to the ground on this perplexing case.
Folks can email me at eg@coldcaseweb.com, eg@coldcaseweb.com. That will get to me. That would be a way if they want to reach out to me, whether they want to talk on the record or talk on background or off the record. Someone out there knows something or knows someone who knows something. And that doesn't mean they're nefarious or bad or we're in on anything. They may have observed something or seen something, whatever the scenario is. So the key, of course, with all this visibility is to keep people thinking and to keep them thinking back.
I've put Eric's email address in the show notes as well. If you are in the Dickinson area and want to help with the search of Keith Schmidt on Saturday, June 14th, people are gathering at Allen's Decorating Center on Main Street, downtown Dickinson at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time. That's June 14th. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Call or text 988 or chat at 988lifeline.org. Thank you so much for listening to Dakota Spotlight.